Welcome to another episode of the Online Prosperity Experience podcast. You're about to hear your host, Prosper Taravinga's powerful digital marketing strategies and actionable tactics that you can use right now. Prosper has helped more than 50,000 people from over 10 countries to create meaningful businesses that are profitable and enjoyable. Listen to this podcast so that you too can build your own business with less stress and overwhelm. Let's get started.
More choices don't actually lead to increased sales. Now, I know you're probably frothing at the mouth right now trying to find out what content or what information to give your audience, just so that they can start viewing you or respecting you as their leader, as their trusted advisor. But I'm here to tell you something. Less is more, okay? If you're going to give your audience or your prospects so much to choose from, then you're actually going to give them, you're probably going to get them more overwhelmed so much that they are not going to actually go ahead with making a purchase. And when somebody is overwhelmed, inertia happens, and we don't want to create inertia, when we're out there, busting everything else that we have so that we can sell our consulting, our training, our information, our expertise, so we can create businesses that are profitable and enjoyable. Okay, so, I've got a question for you. Did you actually know that if you give your customers too many choices, you can actually overwhelm them, and it actually leads to fewer sales? So I'm going to be talking about all of this stuff, so that you can literally create for and relate to your audience without causing burnout to yourself, and also encouraging your customers to actually buy from you, because you could be losing a lot of sales by giving your customers too many choices. And I understand, as a coach, consultant, or small to medium business, you've been working hard to create the business that you now have. You've been gathering information, gathering knowledge, doing all the personal development, and all you just want to do is share. All you just want to do is open up that Pandora's box to your audience. And I also know that while you were on your journey, you were picking and choosing the people you were reading from or learning from or listening to, which is why I appreciate you tuning on to the Online Prosperity Show. So as you can see, as human beings, we like choices. And in fact, it's one of the cornerstones of, what we call a democracy, and it's our right, and we take it as one of our freedoms to actually have a choice to be, a choice to leave, a choice to, marry whoever you want to, you know what I mean? So that's one thing that we assume that human beings want. And, but at the end of the day, it's actually doing you a disservice if you're offering too much choice. And I'm going to be showing you examples of where it might, come into play, especially in the online space, and how the human brain actually works in order for people to actually make a choice. And we want to help our audiences make a choice so that they can choose to work with us and solve their problems using our solutions and our products and services. All right. So as you know, people have multitude of choices. They choose the leaders that they, want to lead them. They choose where they want to work. They choose where they want to leave. They choose what church to go to. They choose whether to listen to certain gurus or not. It is your choice. You know what I mean? But we also like choices, and we also like that our customers have choices whenever they are choosing to work with us. First of all, they have to choose between a sea of Me Too coaches and consultants out there. And then once they've chosen to work with us, we want them to have an array of products and services, so much that, they choose something that actually works for them. So we all like to choose and we also like that our customers have choices when it comes to working with us. All right, but giving your customers too many choices can actually overwhelm them and actually leads to fewer sales. And this is backed by a lot of science and experiments that have been done on humans, not on animals. And even myself, I can attest to this. I was born in Africa, where we didn't have that much choice when it came to food or just stuff. Okay, so you had 2 or 3 pairs of pants that you would wear. You wouldn't have a choice like I now have. I think I have about 50 pairs of pants, from jeans to shorts, all of them just tucked into my wardrobe. And I really hope my wife is not listening to this part of the podcast, because then she's gonna ask me to get rid of some of that stuff. And if we go into our pantry, there's just so much choice of food, you know what I mean? Sometimes I just open the pantry, look, and then close, because I'm just overwhelmed with the amount of choices that I am, offered with, you know what I mean? So even when you're walking around the supermarket or things of that nature, even if you go to your local gelato shop, I went to one that's just, close to us here, and they had over 100 flavors, and you could see them from a mile away, you know what I mean? So I went in and I was excited with my kids and everything else. So all these assorted flavor colors were really mesmerizing, and I just was like a deer caught in headlights, and it happened. It actually happened, because I viewed all these 100+ flavors. I actually couldn't decide what I wanted to try. I actually walked in, looked at the kids that were also, really having a tough time attempting to pick which flavors they want. And all I just wanted was just an ice cream. Like, is that too much to ask? Vanilla, please just put it on the cone and let me be on my way. But there was just so many. And, the flavors had flavor in them, you know what I mean? And flavors had last names, and they were called by the people. I don't know. It's just so much for me to look at. And when I have so much information to take in, I get confused. And I'm supposing that's what happens to your clients as well when they show up on your website and they actually see so many choices that you ask them, do you want them to share on Facebook? Do you want them to share on LinkedIn? Do you want them to share on Twitter, on Dig, whatever place that you want to ask them to share? Okay, so maybe that's one thing. Or when you send them an email, you sending them 5 different offers in one email. It just becomes too much for them to choose from. And maybe you are, directing them to your homepage, and there's just so many things for them to look at. So I'll be looking at all of these things one at a time, so that you can see how you can literally help your clients choose you and choose to work with you without creating any overwhelm or any unwanted remorse for them having not made the best decision, based on what it is that you're putting in front of them. Now, you see, the internet is infinite. You know what I mean? It is an endless source of information, an endless, ball pit for conversations, and an endless, playground for content. And for humans, this is so much to handle and to deal with. All that your clients want is somebody who can, show them how they can help them by actually helping them. In the time that you've been listening to this, more than an hour of video has been uploaded to YouTube that you will never get to watch, but it's there. You know what I mean? And the thing is, the world has always been infinite compared to the human scale. We just want to control the little space that we occupy. You know what I mean? We don't want to be overwhelmed or bombarded with information that is happening somewhere that we don't even know or care about. Right now, a car has been created, which the owner is actually getting an email telling them, yep, your car is ready to pick up. All right, you don't need that information because it's got nothing to do with where you are right now. Right now, as we speak, all right, there's something happening in space, but you have no idea. And right now, someone who works for you probably has a question but you have no idea about that. So there's just so much that demands our attention, so much that demands our focus, which actually takes it away from us. So if somebody's trying to sell us something, we just want them to get to the point, which is probably what you're thinking to yourself right now. Prosper, get to the point with this podcast so that we can see how much the illusion of choice is actually stopping us from creating more for our customers and actually having them buy from us. Okay, see, we like to be able to go maybe to maybe just a movie theater so we can just choose one movie we want to see. The last time I went with my kids, there was 5 to choose from, and I had to choose which one was actually rated for kids. It was just so overwhelming. I don't know, maybe you're just starting to think Prosper gets overwhelmed easily, but I live in a city where everything is just humdrum. You know what I mean? I really enjoyed it during COVID when things were actually slow and quiet for the first time in a very long time. I don't think our brains are designed to operate with so much stimulation coming from so many different places. Like right now, my kids watch maybe 3 or 4 different shows, but we've got Netflix, we've got Disney, we've got Stan, we've got any other streaming service you can think of. You know what I mean? We have hundreds of TV streaming services or hundreds of TV channels if you're on cable, but instead we just gravitate to 2 or 3, at the most 4. So what are we paying for all these other platforms that we're not using? I don't know if you've ever heard of what's called the 80-20 Pareto principle. All right, it's one of the most helpful concepts in life, and also for you to actually manage yourself, manage your business, because apparently it says 20% of your activities will actually account to 80% of your results. Okay, it's not necessarily a mathematical law, but it's just a concept. If you look at whatever you're doing, you probably use 20% of your car right now, but you've got 100% car. You probably just have sat in the driver's seat and maybe occasionally the passenger seat if somebody was driving your car, but you've got a whole car and you only use 20% of it, which is just that driver section. Now look at how many other things that you do, especially even if you look at your whole house. You probably have a really, really big house, but you only use your bedroom and your office, and maybe the bathroom and maybe part of the living area. The rest of the house you don't even go to unless you're being made to clean the house or things of that nature. So there's so much that is happening even when we create thousands and thousands of pages of our websites, or we write copious amounts of content. People only just gravitate to the 20% that makes sense to them. So for us as coaches, consultants, marketers, and copywriters, we could be forgiven for believing that our prospects and customers will actually respond positively if we offer them as many choices as possible. Because we are too close to the product, we are just thinking, maybe they might need this, maybe they might need that. If you throw a party, you will notice one thing. People will gravitate to 20% of the buffet and leave the rest. I don't know how it works out, but it just is like that. It's science. All right, and I'm representing science right now, so don't question why it works like that, okay? And up until a certain point, people do like, yes, to have variety and choices when they decide to buy something, but it's not as it seems, okay? Like I gave you the example of me walking into that, gelato shop. I just walked in there and I'm like, whoa. And you know what crossed my mind? I was just like, there's so many hungry kids in Africa. If we could ship this ice cream to them, they would actually enjoy, this delicacy. But obviously, I digress. This is just my thoughts. Okay, so having more to offer doesn't necessarily equate to, being able to convert people to buy from you. Okay, that's why the name of this podcast is more choice doesn't actually lead to increased sales. In fact, it can actually easily become confused, and people can actually be irritated when they're faced with too many choices, because people are afraid of making the wrong choice. People are afraid of making a mistake. So if you give people so much to choose from, they are afraid they might choose the wrong thing, and then it might lead to regret on their own, or it might lead to them having made a fatal mistake, and they don't want that blame to be on us. So the one thing you should realize as a coach or consultant, your goal and your mission is to actually be paid for somebody to have someone to blame. Your customers are paying you for the privilege of having the opportunity to point a finger at you when things go wrong. So if you know exactly who your target audience is and what it is that they are looking for, you just go straight and give them that particular thing without trying to offer them 500 different things, which will actually make them feel like they're making a bad decision. And when people feel like they're going to make a bad decision, they retract into themselves and they won't buy. I know for myself, like I spoke about the gelato incident, but when I'm also looking at like shampoo or things that I use for grooming my face, when I go to a supermarket, my grumpy meter starts to go red line, like, when I look at shelves stacked with razors and dozens of, choices, all I just want is soap. All I just want is shampoo. All I just want is shaving cream. What I really want is a small shelf in the shop with just one bottle and a line or a label that just says regular guy shampoo. None of this Pantene, none of this whatever, stuff that they show us, on TV. I just need shampoo. I just need shaving cream. I just need that one product that makes me look like at least I'm not homeless. Is that too much to ask? That's all I want, really. You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, if you really look at it, the downside to having too many choices is it actually works, negatively to the person, because it creates what's called buyer's remorse. Okay? Let's say if you buy an Android phone, you would think, wait a minute, Android doesn't have the Apple geniuses that are going to help me when I cannot, download an app on this. All right? So you start feeling that remorse. Oh, I could have gotten an iPhone instead. You know what I mean? That's why people like Samsung and Apple should actually stop advertising. You know why? Because people have chosen their sides already. I mean, when it's very seldom that people switch sides. I mean, they've made it so difficult for you. Once you're an Apple customer, you're already in the Apple system. For you to transfer your data to Android, I don't know. There's some science that needs to happen and some gods that need to be worshipped in order for that transaction to happen. All right. So it's just one of those things, man. People, yes, might want choice or might just want the idea that, yes, they could have made another option. But usually it leads to buyer's remorse when they see other people who are using a different product actually getting much more advantages than they are getting. So let's say maybe I book a trip to Bali, and then it's probably costing $700, and then somebody comes up with a cruise to the same destination and it's probably costing $500, and then I'm starting to think now, this could have been this could have been cheaper for me, or whichever way. It's still to the same destination, but now I'm going through this whole emotional roller coaster, thinking that I made a bad decision, that is now costing me whatever the difference is from flying there or taking a cruise. All right. Or if you go into a shop, or like you just trying to buy sun-dried tomato salad dressing, and you walk out with maybe a roasted garlic one, and you start thinking to yourself, which one would have been better? And you spend the rest of your day beating yourself for having chosen the wrong thing. I mean, these are odd examples, but let me tell you something. We do love to have plenty of choices, and we've come a long way. We have definitely come a long way from the time where we had one horse towns where there was only just one horse. Now we've got cars that people don't even drive, but they are parked in their driveway. You know what I mean? And a lot of people just get confused when they show up to your website and they have too many choices. So there's solid psychology and everything else that goes along with it. I was just reading The Paradox of Choice. Why More is Less. This is an excellent book by Barry Schwartz, if you're going to have a look at it. And it says that this paradox of choice has a great bearing on how successful your sales pages become, either online or offline. If you give people too many choices, guess what happens? They are actually going to decide to do something else, which is scroll out. Okay, so to bring this back to the internet marketing world, all right, there's certain things that we ask our customers to do. We usually ask our customers to share our content. Now, if you want people to share your content, it's best to give them a limited number of ways to do that. If you give them opportunities to share on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, or whatever it is, people are just not going to do anything. The optimum number can be found through, maybe you test how many people actually follow through with that call to action. But the idea is you likely get more shares from fewer options, that when you actually make the choosing difficult by offering people many ways that they can share that link. So essentially, you want to pick the most important icons like Twitter and Facebook, and not clutter your site or your page with a lot more choice, because some platforms, they don't even have a profile there. So you might ask people to share on Google Plus or on Dig, or send people an email. Nobody wants to be spamming their email list with somebody else's content. Okay, so here's some questions that you can actually ask in this example, especially when you want people to share your content. Are any sharing buttons more important than the others? Are any other platforms with much more of a user count than others? Because some people use or might have created a platform, a profile, but they're not actually using those platforms. So to answer you just want to make it simple, make it easy, make it simple for people to do and follow through with your call to actions. Okay, and once people have followed through with one thing, that's something that they consider they have done something good on their part. All right. And also, when you're sending people email campaigns, try to limit the offer that you're putting in that email campaign to one only. When it comes to email marketing, you don't need to make an entire sale in one email. So instead, you want to try and convince your readers to take just one simple action. So maybe, like I keep saying, if you feel like the content that we're putting out in this podcast is valuable, why don't you subscribe? Just subscribe so that you keep getting information like this and you won't miss an episode. Okay, so you just want to give people just one single thing for them to do. That way they feel like they've actually accomplished something. If you give people too many options, too many ways to get back to you, or whichever way, it just becomes too much and you create what's called inertia. So you would think that our prospects actually appreciate having a variety of choices. But if you test it, if you really look and see, offering a lot more choices actually dwindles your sales. Okay, so at the end of the day, you just want to make sure that you're making it easy for people to choose services from you. You're making it easy for people to reach out to you. You're making it easy for people to share content with you. You're also just giving one call to action at any given point. Okay, because so much of our sales process is lost when people are trying to make a decision. And if you've given them so much to consider, guess what? They're going to take a lot of time, and usually they will never come back to us. Okay, so your prospects are more likely to buy when you actually limit their choices. Give them just one or two choices and then make them buy it immediately. So you want to make sure that whatever you're doing with the choices that you're giving them, you give them an emotional reason to engage, and you give them a logical reason to actually analyze, to see that they're not making a mistake, and you give them the urgency to make sure they do it now. Because if you don't allow people to do it now, like I said earlier on, the internet is infinite. They're going to go on to somebody else who's ready, who's more prepared, and that person is actually going to eat your lunch money. All right. So when you give people urgency, you literally tell them choose it or lose it. That way they would actually immediately take whatever action that you are giving or asking off of them. So in some ways, in a world where we appear to be spoiled for choice, this is actually confusing, and it's a big paradox for a lot of people who don't quite understand what it is that they should be offering and how they can actually reach and create for the audiences that they are reaching out to there. So yeah, you might be thinking, oh, wait a minute, I've got this ebook, I've got these courses and things like that. Just check to see if you're not overwhelming your audience with choice paralysis or analysis paralysis, and eventually just give them a reason to act now. But also, this might be different in your industry, okay? Do some testing of your own, you know what I mean? Have a look and see if you can create a separate page which only allows people to make a couple of choices or 3 choices at the most, and also compare that to your current page right now. And then you will notice that the winning copy or the winning page is usually the one with less copy. And if you want to maybe see studies of where this has been done, look at the Google homepage example. Okay, Yahoo started off with the internet, but their homepage was cluttered with information. There was so much to choose from, whereas Google just has 2 buttons: Google search and I'm feeling lucky. So that's when they notice that people are actually, engaging with the page more when they actually have to find things that they want and they're not just given to them. All right. So if you actually let people work for their information and, go through a few hoops, you would actually get them much more engaged than when you just throw everything in front of them. I've actually just had a light bulb moment right now, because my kids have a toy room, and I noticed that they only play with almost 20% of the toys. And the reason is because we have put everything out there for them to play with. I'm actually gonna, as soon as this podcast is finished and my team is editing it and everything else, I'm gonna go into the toy room and take away all their toys and then just release 20% at a time. And then I want to see if they can actually engage with the few toys that they have. Okay, so you'll likely find that reducing people's choices will actually increase your sales and your revenues, because making changes such as your homepage, you're not putting too much content, and you limit customer choices. It doesn't mean that you instantly obviously start getting shares from millions of customers, but at least your traffic will improve. Okay, Google measures how long somebody stays on your website, and guess what? If there's so much choice, they're just gonna go away and find somebody who just gives them 2 to 3 things to choose from. Okay, so it takes a lot more hard work than just deciding maybe which things are going to be relevant. So you find out what are your best sellers at the moment, what content is people sort of resonating with, and then put that up front. That way you now have your proverbial foot in the door, and when people want more, then obviously behind the scenes they'll be able to find all that they are looking for. All right, but also what I'm saying is it doesn't mean that by making some of these changes you can actually increase conversions just because you are now offering less. I'm not saying be stingy, but what I'm just saying is there are studies that have been made to actually show that if you put very few things in front of people, it'll be easy for them to actually make that choice. So do some testing of your own with your copy, with your offers and everything else. And if you think maybe you might need some help to take advantage of this whole less is more phenomenon, or the 80-20 Pareto principle, Why don't you schedule a call with me, okay? And we'll work hands-on to actually develop your strategic plan. And then after that, we'll deep dive and work through your client clarity. Because if you know who exactly your clients are, you will know the 20% of content or information that will actually, grab them by the neck and bring them into your funnels and things of that nature, okay? And then pretty much once we know that 20% of content or of, information or systems, we'll then just craft strategic messaging and look at your consulting offers to also look and see that you're not putting too much choices out there, okay? Because if you've got too many offers, people wouldn't know what it is that is expected of them. And guess what? They'll just slowly walk away, and you are not going to actually convert. And then we'll also look at your fees, your pricing, your business model optimization. And pretty much after that, I'll then help you set up your marketing engine and your lead generation system so you can consistently attract your ideal clients. Like I said, people only look at 20% of things that would then give them 80% of the results. Look at your 20% and do some testing of your own, of your copy, your offers. Look and see that you are not overwhelming your clients or your prospects with too much choice. And you'll likely find that reducing the choices that people have to make will actually increase your sales and your revenue. I can't wait to celebrate with you once you have actually looked into this paradox of choice so that you can create a business that's profitable and enjoyable. Bye for now.
Thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions, let's continue the conversation in the Live Long Digital community. Become a Live Long Digital community member today. This community is for ambitious entrepreneurs and small business owners with the drive to take control of the future of their businesses and achieve huge success without stress and overwhelm. As you heard, Prosper can help you by teaching you marketing strategies that work. So look no further than the Live Long Digital community of entrepreneurs and highly successful business owners. Join our community today. Find us on www.community.livelongdigital.com.au. Network with other driven entrepreneurs and find the expert guidance you need to take your business to the next level. www.community.livelongdigital.com.au